The Iron Flute, Case 99, Daiten's Age. A Confucian scholar named Teisho went to Daiten Choshu's monastery and asked him, "How old are you?" Fugai, he is a very different age from you. Daiten held out his mala and said, "Do you understand?" Fugai, what's that trinket you're using? Teisho said, "No, I cannot understand." Fugai, don't you know what this mala is? Daiten replied, "In the daytime, there are 108 beads, and at night, there are also 108. Fugai, don't you have a better way to handle this student? Teisho was very displeased that he could not understand this old monk, and he returned home. Fugai, you are trying to hammer a nail into the sky. At home, his wife asked, "What makes you so annoyed?" Fugai, this is not a woman's business. Then the scholar told his wife all that had happened. Fugai, what is the good of it? Why do you argue your case as though you are protesting to the emperor? Why not go back to the monastery and ask the old monk what he meant, his wife suggested. Fugai, fortunately, she knows better. Next day, early in the morning, the Confucian scholar went back to the monastery where he met the head monk at the gate. Fugai, misfortune dogs his steps. "Why are you here so early?" the head monk asked. Fugai, why not? "I wish to see your master and question him," Teisho answered. Fugai, do you know where he is? "What is your business with him?" the head monk asked. So the Confucian scholar repeated his story. Fugai, the master never said those words. You are slandering him. The head monk then said, "Why don't you ask me?" Nyogen Senzaki, upstart. Teisho asked, "What does 108 beads in the daytime and 108 beads at night mean?" Fugai, search the I Ching. The head monk clicked his teeth 3 times. Fugai, you're inviting trouble. Finally, Teisho was able to meet with Daiten and once more asked his question, whereupon the master clicked his teeth 3 times. Fugai, do not think you are seeing Zen. "I see," said the Confucian scholar. "All Buddhism is alike." Fugai, the moon is the same, but it illumines the mountain and the valley differently. "You don't say," Daiten answered. Fugai, are you prepared to spill blood? "Yes," said Teisho. "A few moments ago, I met the head monk at the gate and asked him the same question, and he answered me in the same way." Fugai, what are you saying? This has never happened before. Daiten called the head monk to him and said, I understand you showed him Buddhism a few minutes ago. Is it true? Fugai, the battle lines are moving. Yes, answered the head monk. Fugai, this foolish one does not know how to get out of the way. Daiten struck the head monk and immediately expelled him from a monastery. Fugai, when Wang commits murder, Wang will be hung. Genro, why was the head monk expelled? If it was punishment, the master himself did the same. So why not punish himself? If the head monk was not being punished, why was he expelled? Here is the secret of Zen teaching, which has been and will be transmitted from generation to generation. If Daiten had explained his Zen at that moment, he would not only have spoiled others, but would himself have killed the life of wisdom. Do not be alarmed at the thunderstorm, monks. You will see countless stars in the sky afterwards. Fugai, after all, Daiten had a friend. Genro's verse with Fugai's comments. Day and night, 108. Fugai, it ends and begins. What does it mean? It is clear when seen face to face. Clicking the teeth brings expulsion. There was a good opportunity. Northern trees bear differently in the south. When the soil is not the same, that always happens. The doubts of the chief librarian increase. Your mirror is not well polished. Now he knows it is not so easy to handle Buddha's relics. He thought Buddhism was imported, but it was made in China. The sixth day. Our sensitivity is exquisite. Through all our senses, even we have now begun to hear little birds returning from their great journey. And we can understand what they're saying, right? Hokuto Osho had to leave a little early to tend to some family things. And please avoid jumping ahead of yourselves. You are not leaving. And who wants to leave? You don't have to answer. This evening, tomorrow, until middle of the day. Just being here together. And we're coming to the end of the Iron Flute, case 99 out of 100. I started doing Teisho at DBZ Zendo on this collection in 2013. Only one koan left after today. And the last few, you may have noticed, are quite long and involved. Yet even though this one is 3 pages, the case itself is quite simple and moving. Nyogen Senzaki loved this story of exile, having been forced to give up his home in Los Angeles in 1942, and with so many thousands of other Japanese imprisoned in his case, an internment camp at Heart Mountain, Wyoming. And of course, he also had experienced a voluntary exile when he left Japan at a young age, struggling there with no success for funds to keep his mentor garden for the village children going. And then living in California, alone and poor, a stranger in a strange land. I wanted to read you a few of the poems that really convey this so beautifully. And his calligraphy, the way he wrote his poems, was really so beautiful. This one, October 3, 1943. Autumn came naturally to the exiled life to commemorate again Bodhidharma, our patriarch, 4 ways of conduct as he taught us to practice were carried by us during past 12 months. The seeds of Zen were planted deep and covered well with earth. Who knows and who cares what will happen tomorrow on this tricky plateau? Before long, cold clouds may cover us and snowstorm may visit us with no effect to our equanimity. And then he writes the 4 ways of conduct given by Bodhidharma. 1, requite hatred with loving kindness. 2, live within the law of causation. 3, avoid unreasonable desires. 4, make Dharma the standard of life. And later that fall, in this part of plateau, we have no woods, no trees around us. If the snowstorm comes to the village of Honeycomb, maybe you don't understand that. This is an amazing metaphor. Honeycomb. They were all in barracks, sharing little spaces. So, honeycomb. One may fail to tell either east or west, south or north. Our imagination, thus, goes back to the Gobi Desert of ancient times, where many Chinese monks perished on their way to India. Thanks to America, the lamp of Dharma burns in the exiled life. Today, we commemorate Soen Shaku, the pioneer Zen teacher in the land of liberty. We offer incense to his portrait with no wild flowers, but the fragrance of our faith. And here's a short uta, a Japanese ode. Again I see the full moon in this exiled place, the round, round moon in the eastern sky. And a particularly poignant one, undated. The mother was named an enemy alien and forced to stay within the fences. Her son answered the call of Uncle Sam and gave his life in the battlefield abroad. Shinge Roshi and I shared many things, but this love of Nyogen Senzaki truly ran so deep. He was able to meet him only once in 1955 when he made his only trip back to Japan. I never met him, but through his writings and editing and steeping myself and seeing the picture that we have of him, many pictures of him, somehow I've never missed an Yogen Senzaki Sesshin. This year I will not be here for it. Shinge Roshi will lead it. So that may be part of why I'm sharing so many Yogen Senzaki writings with you this session. In addition to translating and commenting on the Iron Flute version of the story of Teisho, he wrote an essay on it called Ageless Age, which Shinge Roshi included in Like a Dream, Like a Fantasy. So I'll weave some sections into the case as we go through it. As far as the Zen master in this case, Daiten Choshu, we know nothing about him. The only thing I was able to find was his name, the kanji for his name, the kanji for both names, and that he must have lived in the early 9th century because Yogen Senzaki mentions the emperor who was ruling at the time, Kenso Zhonzong, who died in 820. So I'll read a little section of this. Kenso devoted himself to the worship of Buddha's relics, which he thought would prolong his life. Interestingly, his successor was a great believer in Taoist elixirs and killed himself by taking them so much. Anyway, by virtue, he thought these relics would prolong his life by virtue of some sort of miraculous power he believed them to possess. One of his subjects, a man named Teisho, a Confucian, appealed to the emperor to discontinue such worship on the ground that all the ancestors of the imperial family had lived long lives without having had to resort to such superstition. The emperor was angered by his subject's opposition and exiled him from the capital. This crowned donkey, who's he talking about?
The emperor.
The emperor. Yes, this crowned donkey knew about, oh, I see how to say it, knew about as much about Dharma as the Confucian did about Buddhism. Yesterday, we heard about the 5 hindrances, one of which can be said to be ill will or rancor or hostility. That's what we're seeing in our own time, right? All these divisive views. And even in contemporary Buddhism, let alone the time referred to in this case, I think most Zen students are skeptical about the worship of relics. Who believes in such nonsense? you might think. Zen is, after all, self-power, not other power. Awaken to your true nature, depending on no one, no scriptures, no relics, nothing whatsoever. No Amida Buddha, no Tara. But really? You know, D.T. Suzuki, who wrote extensively on Zen, also wrote about Pure Land Buddhism. And he was quite clear that self-power and other power are not separate. Not in actual practice, not in actual life. This interdependency that we have, not just among Sangha, our broader community, the plants, the animals, the mountains, the lake, but within this great mystery, we are being supported by, see, immediately your mind goes to, yeah, by what? And that's the issue. We cannot imagine. And I have to tell you, some of us had the experience of the power of Buddhist relics. At my temple in Syracuse, we sent out an invitation. August 21st to 23rd, 2012, in celebration of 40 years of continuous practice, the Zen Center of Syracuse invites you to the Loving Kindness Tour, the Maitreya Project Heart Shrine Relics Tour, an exhibition of sacred relics of the Buddha and Buddhist masters. Hundreds of people from all over came each day, and also their animals. Was anyone here there? You were here, right? Toban? Sounds really incredible. We monks and nuns, holding a little pyramid with relics, we would circle the head of each human, each dog, cat, bird. I don't remember any goldfish, but anyway. Yeah, it's amazing. So there were more than 100 relics in all. And some were salvaged from statues that had been destroyed during the communist invasion of Tibet. Some of the relics were from the historical Buddha.
Excuse me, what's the relics? What's the relics?
When you're cremated, you have ashes and also some bones. And it is said that if you are a very evolved master, you can find in your ashes and your bones a shiny, translucent, special relic.
You said something different color? Oh, that's how Maid Roshi died.
That's right. Remember?
Yeah, color is good, yeah.
And it was, we could feel that power, right? Yeah. So there were 42 Buddhist masters and teachers, and some of these relics were donated from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, his own personal collection. And the Hoenji residents and I just lived among it all, right? The Zendo is so incredible. They had a huge statue of Maitreya, more than life-size, in the center, the future Buddha, and all around these relics in glass cases. And, one of the organizers said, when you come into contact with the relics, you're coming into contact with something really special that can make a positive change deep inside. It may not be something you recognize right away, but it will blossom later. And I saw that with my dog, Nikita. We had rescued her. She was a terrier mix. And the first few years were very difficult because we would take her on a walk and she would bite someone. She was suffering, a trainer told us, from fear-based aggression, trauma, and felt she had to protect us. So everyone was telling us, you have to put that dog down. We had to go to court and plead her case. So after I held the relics over her head, little by little, she changed. Not right away. She still had a few bites in her. But little by little, by the time we visited you, right? A sweetheart. I brought her here. A sweetheart. And she died here on the eve of Rohatsu, 2018. All during those days, we heard a recording of the Metta Sutta, sung really beautifully by Ime Oi. She's a Malaysian composer and singer. And you know, nowadays you can find anything on YouTube, including this Song of Metta. May I be free from enmity and danger. May I be free from mental suffering. May I be free from physical suffering. May I take care of myself happily. May my parents, teachers, relatives, and friends, fellow Dharma practitioners, may they be free, etc. May all the monks in this compound, novice monks, laymen and laywomen, disciples, be free from enmity and danger. May our guardian devas in this monastery, may all beings, all breathing things, all creatures, all individuals, all personalities, may all females, all males, all noble ones, all worldlings, all deities, all humans, all those in the four woeful planes, be free from enmity and danger, from mental suffering, from physical suffering. May they take care of themselves happily. All beings are owners of their karma. as far as the highest plane of existence to as far down as the lowest plane in the entire universe. May all beings be free. You can say it with me. Free from enmity and danger. May they be free from mental suffering. May they be free from physical suffering. May they take care of themselves happily. So, 2012, 2023, still right now, this prayer is offered. You know, you have to put the logical, rational mind in suspension. Or maybe just put it in a box somewhere. It loves boxes. What are you afraid of? It's that dualistic mind, that compartmentalizing mind, that confining mind you should fear. May you be free. Here we are facing the inconceivable with a reverential heart. This is our spiritual practice, no matter what we call it. No matter if relics are physically present or not. They are anyway, everywhere. That's what this earth is made of. And we know this. Each of us knows this from chanting Kanzeon. She's here. Whether we see her or not. This form of no form has form. So, offering homage to the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, our family ancestors, all here in this moment. Whenever we chant with fervor, with sincerity, with open hearts, giving ourselves away, then we are truly pervaded by this vow, this prayer. May all beings be free. So let's go back to this Confucian scholar, Teisho, exiled to Choshu, where Daiten had his monastery. It was probably a very humble place, out in the middle of nowhere. Quite an inconspicuous practice, far from the center of imperial power, far from court intrigues too. exile. Right now, all throughout the world, so many are in exile. Cultural oppression, political persecution, terrorism, hopelessness, climate crisis. Right here we have refugees. And some, as you know, have tried so desperately and have been turned back. Just as those ships of Jews fleeing Nazi Germany were turned back by the US government. And even when someone chooses to leave behind the familiar and establish a new life, as Nyogen Senzaki and many of you have done, still there is this being a stranger, being somehow at odds with this culture, not accepted, experiencing ill will, prejudice. This is not something abstract. What about being exiled from our own true home? What brings us to practice this sense of being displaced, somehow off-center? Separated from what we somehow feel, we know, and yet cannot reach. And so we come here to come home. In any case, there was Teisho, cut off from his exciting former life. Of course, it was terrible to be sent away from a very important position as Confucian librarian to travel into the hinterlands and start a new life. But interestingly, this allowed him time for reflection. And he found himself wanting to know more about Buddhism. There was nothing to do in that remote region, maybe take a walk. And on one of his walks, he noticed a small Zen monastery tucked away in the hills. And he decided to pay a visit. His opposition, his ill will, had cost him dearly. Now, something to look into. So he sees Daiten, this old monk, and he asks him, "How old are you?" Fugai comments, he's a very different age from you. You get the implication? Meaning, Daiten doesn't count his years the way you do. And indeed, what did Daiten do? He held out his mala. How many beads are in a mala? 108. How many times do we strike Konsho at New Year's Eve? 108. What is this business of 108?
Number of bonno. Number of bonno, delusion.
Number of delusions. Of course, it just is a stand-in for your countless. We might call delusions, or we might call years of your life, your age. So, he held out his mala and he said, "Do you understand?" Kantaishi, "No, I cannot understand. I asked you how old you are." Daiten replied, "In the daytime there are 108 beads, and at night there are also 108. Kantaishi was very, very annoyed that he could not understand this old monk. Very perplexed. And so Fugai says, "Oh, you're trying to hammer a nail into the sky. You're not using your mind. Hammer a nail into the sky. It's not so effective." So he returned home. And I read again from Nyogen Senzaki. What the Confucian saw was only an old monk. Hence his question. What the master showed him was the age of no beginning and no end. Foolish Kantaishi was unable to see this at a glance, and so the master had to illustrate it for him. But it remained a puzzle, and so he returned home. When his wife asked him what had happened, he told her everything. The wife said, "That old monk seems to me a very kind-hearted person. I do not think he would puzzle you just for the fun of it. Why don't you ask him again to explain his meaning?" Next day, early in the morning, the Confucian scholar went back to the monastery, where he met the head monk at the gate. And here Fugai comments, "Misfortune dogs his steps." The monk said to him, "Why are you here so early?" "I wish to see your master and question him," Kantaishi answered. "Well, what is your business with him?" the head monk asked. So he repeated the story. The head monk then said, "Why don't you ask me?" Kantaishi asked, "What does 108 beads in the daytime and 108 beads at night mean?" Here Fugai comments, "Why don't you go look in the I Ching? You're Confucian, aren't you not?" The head monk clicked his teeth 3 times. And here, Yogen Senzaki, in this essay, says, the Confucian should not have transacted business with the chief monk that was meant for the master. Like a mother hen sitting on her egg, the Confucian should have carried his question to Daiten. This question was, in fact, his koan, and from it could have come, if properly incubated, a lovely chick of realization. But the Confucian tried instead to solve his koan through conventional means, and so it never hatched at all. Finally, Teisho was able to meet with Daiten and once more asked his question, whereupon the master clicked his teeth 3 times. Oh, I see, said the Confucian scholar. All Buddhism is alike. You don't say, Daiten answered. Yes, said Teisho. A few moments ago, I met the head monk at the gate and asked him the same question, and he answered me the same way. And what Yogen Senzaki says about this is, the chief monk spoiled Daiten's game. He had no business intruding the way he did between student and master. He had probably attained his Zen by hearing the sound of Daiten's teeth, but to apply his own Zen to the case of the Confucian was as misguided as a hospital nurse giving the same medicine that cured her to another patient. The point here is not that Daiten wished to monopolize the Zen he had transmitted to the head monk, but rather that the monk spoiled his teaching through its inappropriate application. A koan is like medicine. In the hands of a doctor, it can cure. In the hands of anyone else, it can poison and kill. Instead of creating new aspiration, disciples usually take the easy way out and merely do what others before them have done. The distinctions that exist among schools, sects, or denominations of religion exist only because of such slavish imitation. Then he says, to avoid this, I have tried to take off all the coverings or wrappers from my own teaching. Buddhism, Zen, Soto, Rinzai, sect, temple, church, and show you the bare truth just as it is. Anyone who has unnecessary wrappers, please take them off without any hesitation. This is what Doksan is, right? You take them off. Don't come in with any preconceived notions. When you take them off, you will know exactly how old Daiten is, and that we are all the same age. In the daytime, 108. In the nighttime, 108. Then, after Daiten has called up the head monk and struck him and expelled him, we have yet another exile. And Fugai comments, when Wang commits murder, Wang will be hung. It's a variation on a very well-known Jakugo verse. When Mr. Li drinks wine, Mr. Cho gets drunk. We have Kantaishi's hostile ignorance. We have the head monk who thinks he can use his teacher's way and gets expelled. That head monk may remind you of Gute raises his finger. Some of you know case 3 of the Mumonkan, in which it is said that some visitors came to Gute's temple and he was out, and his young attendant met them, and they said to him, "Tell us, what is your teacher's Zen?" So the attendant, and then a while later, Gute comes back and hears about this and calls the attendant to him. And what happens? Cuts his finger off. The attendant runs screaming out of the room, and just at that moment, Gute calls him. He turns around. Gute. And at this, the attendant has a deep realization. Sliced off finger. Now, his own, right? This awakening. And the same with head monk. Expulsion. And now real practice can begin. So no explanations. Just this direct activity. Daiten offered up his dharma. And Kantaishi, exiled for his own oppositional views, ends up being in this place, Choshu, where there is this monastery. And as Fugai comments, after all, Daiten had a friend. Kantaishi. We all can change. We all can drop our fixed views. We all can enter into this Dharma friendship, which has always been and is just waiting for us to take off the wrappers.